Ladies and gentlemen, I am most pleased to hold this panel at such a great event. My name is Marzena Markowska and I'm deputy editor of Wasza Turystyka.pl, not an international name, news portal for the travel business. And the topic of today's panel is readiness for change, how to build the resilience of tourism in times of uncertainty. Ladies and gentlemen, tourism is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, but it is also such a branch of economy that has some very underrated qualities. And I do not only mean those economical ones, but also those social ones. It is an industry that helps to grow and develop in those regions that are otherwise excluded from the economical environment and have no other sources of income. I think also it is important that tourism and travel connects people and helps them to integrate between nations, to get to know other cultures and to get to know each other and to enrich our minds. But tourism is also a very vulnerable part of economy. It is most prone to crisis situations, all sorts of unexpected events and factors, just to mention the last 2 decades, what happened and what impacted our economy. The attack on the World Trade Center in 2001, the eruption of volcano, the economical crisis in 2008, terrorist attacks, all sorts of political disruptions in travel destinations, and lately an unprecedented event, the global pandemic, and followed quickly by the outburst of war in Ukraine. And tourism is always the first to suffer and always the last to recover. Thus, I think the topic of this panel, because in times of turbulence, and we are facing such times, we should connect, learn from each other, exchange experiences, and have as many opportunities to speak and learn from each other as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I am most pleased to welcome our distinguished guests, Mr. Andrzej Gut-Mostowy, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Sport and Tourism in Poland. Mr. László Könnyű, Member of the Board of Directors of Hungarian Tourism Agency. We are also accompanied today by Mr. Ilin Dimitrov, Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Bulgaria, who wanted to be here very much with us in person, but will be joining us online. Oh, we've got Mrs. Mariela Modeva, the Vice Minister. Hi, Mariela.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I had to replace our minister because maybe, as you know, that we recently had elections, and tomorrow for first time will be the session of new Bulgarian Parliament, and in this connection, our contemporary Council of Ministers at the same moment has a meeting. So for me, it's a big pleasure to participate in this high-level forum and to congratulate all of you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And especially thank to the organizers and Mr. Gut-Mostowy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasant surprise that we have Mariela here. And we also have a word from Mr. Vincas Jurgutis, the Minister of Economy and Innovation of the Republic of Lithuania, who also could not be here with us due to some unexpected situation, but he recorded a video with a few words for our attendants. So please, let's hear them now.
tourism. First of all, let me thank Poland for organizing this important event and raising key issues for our discussion. Tourism has been facing significant challenges in the recent years. COVID-19 pandemic, travel restriction, reduced tourist numbers, and worst of all, Russian war in Ukraine. As today, Russia disrupts the whole tourism ecosystem that just started to recover from COVID-19 crisis. In June 2022, Lithuania hosted the first regional tourism summit on peace and recovery. I wish to say special thanks to Poland and its strong support for this event and joining Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Ukraine in signing the joint statement on tourism. In the statement, we considered that Russia is disrupting the entire tourism ecosystem. The effects of the war are felt in terms of difficult security situation, cancelled trips, or changed holiday destination. Tourism is incompatible with war. We all agree that tourism is impossible in the time of war. Safety is the major factor while choosing a travel destination. Safety and security have always been an obligatory condition for travel and tourism. It has become a disputed fact that safety and security has gained a much bigger importance in the last years in tourism sector. We all share the responsibility to stop the war. We all lay all our efforts to help tourism businesses to recover. Let me briefly share what Lithuania is doing to support tourism businesses. During the pandemic, Lithuania was one of the first countries to introduce a COVID certificate for vaccinated, immunized, or tested people to participate in the economy and help businesses to survive. Lithuania has amended the tourism law to include the vouchers as an alternative way for travelers to change the date of the trip in 1 year using the same amount of money paid. A system of holiday vouchers for medical people working in Lithuania was implemented in 2021. It was 10 million euros that were dedicated to boost local tourism and thanks to medical sector employees who worked during hard COVID-19 pandemic. Our Ministry of Economy and Innovation also started and administered compensations 1 million fund, which covered up to 75% of expenditures of returning Lithuanian tourists back to Lithuania after the extreme situation was announced and travels were restricted. Tourism Innovation Tool was aimed to transform tourism sector by increasing the usage of digital technologies and innovations while creating tourism services and products. Financed were the purchases of services of publishing, voice reading, translation, photography, filming, design and communication. In total, 7 million euro grants were given to businesses. Since the first quarantine, 30 million euros were dedicated for measure loans for providers of accommodation and catering and loans for travel services providers. Another tool guarantees to secure fulfillment of obligations of travel services providers. And of course, tourism sector businesses can apply for subsidies using general measures. During the period started 20 till 22, travel agencies and tour operators received almost 70 million euros. Today, business is experiencing the rise in costs as a result of growing energy prices. To deal with this problem, the Lithuanian government has prepared 2.5 billion euro fund for businesses that we expect will help business to deal with the current energy crisis. It is highly important for the tourism sector that hotels will be entitled to 9% VAT initiative for hotels, whereas to catering and event organization companies it will be applied till the middle of 2023. The share of energy price increase will be compensated to businesses from the last quarter of 2022. To conclude, I am happy to say that summer season we had in Lithuania was very promising. In the first half of the year, nearly 500,000 foreign tourists stayed in Lithuania, which is 4 times more than in the same period in 2021. Lithuania received nearly 50,000 Polish tourists. The domestic tourism enjoyed its golden age. Already during the first half of the year, we doubled numbers of domestic tourists, 1.2 million, to compare to 500,000 the year before. Dear ladies and gentlemen, today, more than ever, we need to stand together and unite efforts to compare and recover fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lithuania, for this very insightful information. And I think we've got some things in common, but we will talk about that later. Let me start with Laszlo. I would like to ask about your experiences during the pandemic times, to come back to this very hard period and tell us, how did the travel market react to the situation?
First of all, thank you very much for hosting us in Zakopane today and in Poland. We are really happy to be here, and it's an excellent event, so congratulations once again to this wonderful event. It's important to get together after a crisis, within a crisis, during a crisis, to exchange the views. I think, let me start with some figures, and I'm not going to talk about too many numbers because none of us will remember at the end of the day. Before the pandemic, 2019 was a very successful year in Hungary, the best ever in tourism. We had 42 million guest nights, 42 million guest nights in a small country with 10 million people. And then we went down with the numbers, of course. We had a certain percent of the GDP, 13% of the GDP came from tourism. We went down with the numbers as well during the pandemic. At the lowest point, we were at 4 and 5% of the GDP. And guest nights, last year in 2021, we had 27 million guest nights. So it's increasing, coming back to this 42 million. And if we are lucky, by the end of this year, we will be somewhere between 36 and 37 million guest nights. So to cut it short, we had some experience and we had to learn some lessons. But during the pandemic, we lost more than half of the revenue and more than half of the guest nights as well. And domestic tourism saved us. So it was one of the lessons in this time. But strictly talking about the figures, we went down from 42 million guest nights to 21, 27 in the 2 years. And also the GDP went down. And along the way, how we went, I kept telling my colleagues and in the entire country, for the industry, key players, and you said it yourself when you started the panel, tourism gets the hit first. If something happens in the world, then tourism stops immediately and we have to wait until it gets on the way again. And I kept telling, okay, guys, don't worry, because it gets the first hit, but the recovery is really fast. And within seconds, we will be out of the pandemic and we will be out of the troubles. As we went along the way, every once in a while, I didn't really believe in that anymore.
Do you want the share of the GDP to increase? I mean, is it good for economy to be dependent on such unstable economy as tourism?
The answer is quite simple. 400,000 people in Hungary living from the tourism industry, especially in rural areas. So if you're not talking about Budapest and the excellent numbers in Budapest, we have to have tourism in Hungary in order to employ people in the countryside at Lake Balaton and on the north part. So probably you are right, and probably 13% is too high, but we are working on it to have a stable 10 and 12% on the long term if we are recovered.
Okay. Mr. Andrzej, I would like to ask about the Polish view on the subject. In Poland, COVID hit us very hard, but some of the segments of the industry have already recovered, right?
Na wstępie chciałbym przede wszystkim podziękować panu z Węgierskiej Organizacji Turystycznej i naszym gościom z Bułgarii, z Litwy, że odpowiedzieli na nasze zaproszenie i propozycję porozmawiania o turystyce w kontekście środkowoeuropejskim. To jak najbardziej jest ważne. Spotykaliśmy się także z panem wielokrotnie online na konferencjach ministrów turystyki z poszczególnych krajów europejskich, dlatego jesteśmy sobie znani, ale tym bardziej w tych czasach, kiedy zmagamy się z nowymi wyzwaniami, jak najbardziej trzeba porozmawiać wspólnie, także w kontekście sportu. I odpowiadając na pytanie pani redaktor i główny temat naszego panelu, czyli budowanie odporności gospodarki turystycznej. W moim przekonaniu trzeba byłoby rozpocząć te rozważania od podstawowej praprzyczyny wszelkiej turystyki, czyli potrzeby człowieka wyjazdu aktywnego, wyjazdu poznawania innej przyrody, innej kultury, innej cywilizacji, poznawania nowych atrakcji turystycznych, bo ta potrzeba jest sednem i głównym rdzeniem turystyki. I widzimy po ostatnich miesiącach, po tych przymusowych ograniczeniach i zarówno komunikacji, i ograniczenia ruchu turystycznego, że ten sezon pokazał, że ta potrzeba turystyki, wypoczynku, wyjazdu krótszego, dłuższego jest tak mocna we współczesnych społeczeństwach europejskich, czy to polskich, czy węgierskich, ale mam kontakt z branżą nawet w Grecji i w Chorwacji. Tam zapewne będą rekordowe lata, to już wiemy wstępnie. To pokazuje, że ta turystyka ze wzmożoną siłą się odrodziła. W ekonomii funkcjonuje takie pojęcie odłożonego popytu. Oczywiście popyt z definicji jest to potrzeba wyrażona w pieniądzu, czyli można powiedzieć, że ta odłożona potrzeba turystyki czy czasu wolnego kumuluje się w ludziach i ma charakter wznoszący pewnego procesu cywilizacyjnego, czyli większa ilość pracy biurowej, większa ilość takich obowiązków, które każą nam być w obiektach zurbanizowanych. To powoduje to, że potrzeba kontaktu z przyrodą, wyjazdu poza miasto jest coraz mocniejsza we współczesnych cywilizacjach i to jest optymistyczna sentencja, optymistyczna refleksja, jeżeli chodzi o turystykę w ogóle na najbliższe lata czy na pokolenia. Czyli te megatrendy, które towarzyszyły w rozwoju turystyki przez ostatnie kilkadziesiąt lat, obok postępu środków komunikacyjnych, obok procesów urbanizacyjnych i cywilizacyjnych, dalej postępuje i pandemia to tylko wzmocniła. Do organów władzy publicznej należy teraz tylko przemyśleć, jak starać się odpowiadać na te potrzeby, aby branża turystyczna, która naturalnie czyta potrzeby, czyta popyt, to między innymi widzimy w modyfikacjach też branży turystycznej, która w tej chwili odpowiada, budując nowe obiekty dla turystyki kwalifikowanej, jak odpowiedzieć na te potrzeby, natomiast władza publiczna powinna stwarzać tylko warunki administracyjne w tym kierunku. Dlatego taka umiarkowanie pozytywna refleksja co do tej przyszłości długofalowej dla turystyki wydaje się być pozytywna. Wracając do tego punktu bezpośredniego, jak my w Polsce radziliśmy sobie z tymi kwestiami budowania odporności, albo inaczej mówiąc, starać się pozwolić przeżyć branży turystycznej. No, ja mogę tylko powiedzieć, że te wszystkie instrumenty, które zastosowaliśmy, chyba przyniosły skutek, bo statystyki są tutaj dla nas bardzo korzystne. Jeżeli chodzi o branżę turystyczną, to ta ilość wszystkich złych scenariuszy dla branży turystycznej w ostatnich latach, w ostatnich miesiącach pandemicznych nie była dramatyczna, a statystyki upadłości biur podróży w ostatnim roku były porównywalne do lat przedpandemicznych, czyli to były jednostki i dlatego mogę powiedzieć może trochę nieobiektywnie, że że spełniliśmy swoją rolę wspólnie jako władza, jako branża, że pozwoliliśmy przetrwać te najcięższe czasy.
Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you. I think you've answered all my questions before I asked them. Thank you. Let me come back to Mariela. We are still connected, luckily, and I would like to ask about your experiences. In what condition is the travel market in your country after COVID?
Thank you very much for these important questions. Of course, tourism is a very important sector, and it was very bad concern by the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the start of war in Russia and Ukraine, of course, we have to compare the data in order to see the trends. In 2019, the manufactured GDP of Bulgarian tourism and related branches was around 7 billion euro. When we compare with 2021, it's diminished and become around 3 to 3.5 billion euro. For this year, we expect to see a substantial increase. The other important fact is that the number of jobs in tourism and its related branches in 2019 was 300,000 people. In the next year, 2020, their number was around 250,000. And this year, we expect that the number of jobs is expected to have grown. At the moment, we already paid different financial allowances to Bulgarian business and tourism, and we already have 8 schemes and allocated more than 7 million euro to these companies, tour operators, tour agents, tour air companies, and transport companies. We had very attractive measure, 25 euros per seat, for tour operators who works with tour agencies. And at the moment, our VAT in tourism is 9%. When we compare with the other sectors, when VAT is 20%, the other way to help to hoteliers and the people who are working in the restaurants. Of course, our plans is to recover the touristic sector in the next year, and we activated a lot our promotional campaigns to the countries, to neighbor countries, and especially to Poland. The Poland tourists are historically very welcomed in Bulgaria, and we are glad to see the growth of their number. For this year, from the beginning of the year until now, we have more than 250,000 Polish tourists, and maybe their number will be more when we see the final data for the season. We activated our promotional campaigns mainly for the neighbor countries, for Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovenia, and of course the new markets. Our efforts are concentrated to cover tourists from Great Britain, Israel, Slovakia, and other countries, Germany as well. Normally in Poland and Germany, we have our representatives, attachés for tourism. And in Poland, we're going to organize a road trip in the next week. We are actively participating in all markets and exhibitions, And of course, we work very actively with diplomatic corps. All these measures will give us opportunity to recover touristic sector because at the moment in Bulgaria there is no any requirements connected with COVID-19. We are absolutely open for all inbound tourists in Bulgaria, and in our Ministry of Health are prepared the new plans to increase the number of vaccinated people. At the moment, we have no problem with COVID-19 in the country. The situation is under control, but our efforts is to meet the next season during the winter because many engaged people in the sector are very worried about the prices of electricity and, of course, the inflation. At the moment, we have government appointed by the president, but tomorrow the new Bulgarian parliament will start its work, and we hope to be supported as a Ministry of Tourism because we proposed several packages of measures connected with compensation for the business on the point of view of the prices of the electricity. Of course, we continue to persist to have VAT 9% for all sectors and to continue this program about 35 euro per seat. But we have to receive notification from the European Commission. With all these measures, we succeed to keep the working places, the jobs of so many people who are engaged in the sector. As I mentioned, more than 250,000 people. And we supported the business. So in this difficult period, in the last 2 years, and after the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine, we find a very good way to work together, the government and the private sector. We have many lessons learned how to transform the crisis into possibilities and how to find the new ways to develop the sector through digitalization, new information and communication technologies, and to implement the good practices used in the other countries from Europe and especially members of the European Union. We have very good cooperation with our neighbor countries and with other members of EU in order to find quick decisions in the end to solve these new challenges in our uncertain world. This is the very last data, but I hope that the new parliament, our proposals to increase the financial support for the promotion of Bulgaria through TV channels, through digital platforms, in internet will be supported because our budget is not so big. But nevertheless, we try to use it in an effective way and to promote Bulgaria as a safe country, as a peaceful country with very good conditions for inbound tourists. And of course, we have to distribute a clear message that Bulgaria offers excellent conditions for recreation, and at the same time, we are a safe destination. Our Black Sea is a safe and peaceful area, and we have long traditions and expertise in guaranteeing quality and hospitality in tourism.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Have
a lot.
a good forum.
I think we all agree that tourism, resilient as it may be, could not cope with COVID without all sorts of means of support. What tools of support did your country provide for the travel segment?
I think instead of going into the many issues what we did during the pandemic, and also some of them we use today in this new crisis, let me just highlight a few of them. One of them was, for example, very similar to what Poland also had on mind, to keep the businesses running. What do you need a business to keep running? You need the employees, you need the good people who work in our industry, especially after a time when you are closed, and especially the young people are losing the faith in tourism. Who is going to work in this beautiful hotel in 10 and 15 years in Poland? This is the question. We have the same questions in Hungary. So we spent quite a lot of money, billions of Hungarian forint, for supporting the wages. And when everything came to a stop, the government said we must do rebuilding infrastructure. We kept plenty of money flowing into the business to reconstructing hotels, to building new hotels, to help the small and medium enterprises, especially in the countryside. If you imagine 15,000 small entities, I would call them bread and breakfast units along the countryside, with 45,000 guest rooms were refurbished from a government fund using national funds and national money to help the business going. We also had a 0% interest rate loan to cope somehow with the crisis. But I wanted to stick to one point, and probably it answers some of our questions and leads over to digitalization as a new tool, how to go into the future. In 2019, Hungary was one of the countries who set up a new digital data system where we see not only the data, how many people slept, let's say, in Zakopane last night, and what were the nationalities, we also see the forecast data. We have 41,000 units from Hungary wired into the central national data system, and I am able to see the forecast data. So when you ask me what happened in the current crisis and how the markets of the US and, let's say, South Korea changed the landscape in Budapest, I am able to see the numbers. And if you want to talk about digitalization, if you have valuable data from the industry, what happens now and what will happen tomorrow and what will happen in 2 months, then you are able to make those decisions, what needs to be done in the industry. So without data, it doesn't work.
Are you saying you invented the crystal ball, actually? You've had the algorithm for the future.
We call it magic at the headquarters because we see the future as well.
I think we've got 2 examples of countries that are in different ways dependent of different segments of travel. Is your country very much dependent on incoming tourists, foreign visitors? And how did the outburst of war and the destabilization of the market again affect that branch?
The good news is, if we look at the numbers and the figures, the situation is a little better than we expected, probably the similar in Poland, because once the war started, we immediately thought that, especially from long-haul markets, let's say the US again, or South Korea, or Canada, for instance, will say goodbye to the Central European region, probably to the Czech Republic, to Poland, to Hungary. But this is not the case. If we look at the river cruise business, the boats running up and down on the Danube, the figures in 2022 are higher than in 2019. So the pent-up demand is quite high. So we didn't lose the US market. The US customers are back in Central Europe. We had more than 500,000 guest nights in Hungary, just alone from the US, guys who are spending nights in Budapest before they board the boat and after the boarding. So the good news is the shape is better, but we are sitting here now on 18th of October in Zakopane. The problem is probably if we look at the future, the high energy prices are coming in November and December, so the end of the year will be tricky. And the question is not going to be, is there enough demand from the domestic market, from foreign guests to travel in Hungary and to travel to Hungary? probably the question will be in part, is there enough supply? Are there enough hotels open? Budapest is running fine. We have excellent figures in the capital. In the countryside, we see a little slowdown in tourism, especially in domestic demand. But the question will be in 1 month's time, are there enough hotels and restaurants open? Are there enough people still working in industry?
I think, Mr. Andrzej, that this issue of the winter that is coming and threatening again our industry is something that many countries have in common. Do you still plan to support the companies to endure this difficult time that is starting right now again?
Tak, rzeczywiście nadchodzące tygodnie, miesiące mogą przynieść nowe problemy związane z cenami energii i zaopatrzeniem w energię. To już mój kolega przedmówca podkreślił. Wydaje się, że te proponowane na najbliższe dni, tygodnie pewne rozwiązania, które będą procedowane w parlamencie także w tym tygodniu, przyniosą pewną przewidywalność. Tak? One nie przyniosą bardzo satysfakcjonującego scenariusza, ale przyniosą pewną przewidywalność i pewne limity, które pozwolą na to, że wszystkie małe i średnie przedsiębiorstwa w Polsce będą miały możliwość przewidywania swoich cen energii, a co zatem cen ostatecznego produktu, obojętnie czy jest to sektor produkcyjny, czy jest to sektor usług. Dlatego to są fakty z ostatnich kilku dni, które na pewno uspokoją sytuację w sensie psychologicznym całej gospodarki polskiej, a branża sportów, turystyki zimowej jest w dużym stopniu od cen energii uzależniona. Mówimy tu o stacjach narciarskich, ale także aquaparki, sektor hotelowy, gastronomia jak najbardziej. Wydaje się, że te decyzje będą miały dobry wpływ. Mimo wszystko też jestem tutaj optymistą w tym sensie, że użyję tu terminu ekonomicznego, elastyczność popytu turystyki jest dosyć duża, czyli że ta tolerancja polskiego konsumenta na umiarkowane zwyżki cen usług turystycznych jest akceptowalna. I to pokazały też sezon wakacyjny. Przypomnijmy, że średnie zwyżki cen usług noclegowych oscylowały od 15 do 20 do 25%, ale były rejony Polski, gdzie te ceny były, te wzrosty cen były nawet wyższe, czyli branża mogła sobie na nie pozwolić, bo były akceptowalne w tych regionach najbardziej atrakcyjnych turystycznie przez konsumenta. I dlatego i to jest nawiązanie do tych przyczyn, o których mówiłem wcześniej, że ten głód podróżowania jest na tyle mocny, że pozwoli turystyce na dostosowanie cen usługi końcowej do tych wzrastających kosztów, jeżeli te koszty nie będą wzrastały w sposób drastyczny. Wydaje się, że te ceny, które są w tej chwili przewidywalne, czyli te niecałe 800 kW jest akceptowalne i nie spowoduje jakiejś rewolucji cenowej na rynku usług turystycznych.
I see that we've got 3 minutes until the end of the debate. I've got 3 of you here with me, so I will give a minute to each of you to sum up and...
Goście mają pierwszeństwo.
Yes, of course. To sum up and to ask what kind of changes must travel undergo to be more resilient to crisis situations in the future? And starting with Mariela, and 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much. The most important is to use integrated approach to the problems, to have very good coordination between the state, local authorities and the private sector, and of course to have a balance between the quality and the price of the product, to promote it on the and active way and to have connectivity, because for the tourists is the most important to reach the final destination of the tourism. Of course, with relations with other countries from European Union and to work together in different levels help a lot to find better decisions on the national level, and of course to use good practices and to work actively not only for inbound tourism but as well for domestic tourism, which saved the sector during the difficult years 2020-21. We have very positive data from the summer season, and I think that in the next year we'll have even better connected with that tourists will recover.
That was the Bulgarian minute. Laszlo, please make it a
We
Hungarian
have a
minute.
Hungarian minute, which will be real quick. Basically, first of all, you have to push digitalization. I think this is my #1 priority. If you have the data, then you can make a decision in a crisis. Otherwise, you don't know what's going on, how many people work, how is the occupancy rate in the hotels. So push as a government in with every possible manner the digitalization. That's #1 priority. #2, don't forget the people who are coming, the young generation who is coming to work in our industry. So the government needs to pay attention on education. This is the #2 priority. And spend enough money on infrastructure. So we have to have space where tourism is happening. And with all of them, if you push domestic tourism, then you cannot lose. You're going to win.
Mr. Minister, Mr. Andrzej.
Właściwie ja bym chciał podziękować za rzeczową rozmowę moim przedmówcom i powiedzieć, że naszym głównym wyzwaniem, jeżeli chodzi o turystykę krajową, jest mimo wszystko poszerzanie takiej oferty, która by odpowiadała potrzebom Polaków i nie tylko Polaków, czyli turystyka aktywna, turystyka wiejska, agroturystyka. Tutaj patrzę w kierunku Polskiej Organizacji Turystycznej, że nasze rozmowy, nasze zwiększenie budżetu na najbliższe miesiące pozwoli na danie takiej możliwości poszerzenia oferty. I oczywiście nawiązując do słów mojego przedmówcy, oczywiście badania ilościowe, statystyczne są bardzo ważne, ale ja także uważam, że badania jakościowe w turystyce, czyli zbadanie opinii turysty i przede wszystkim zapytanie, co było dobre, co było złe, czego oczekuje więcej, są bardzo produktywne dla branży turystycznej i dla decydentów w sferze publicznej, co poprawić, czy co zrobić nowego, aby odpowiedzieć na te potrzeby.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've got lots to work on in the future and the future of travel. Just let me remind you that we are joined today by Mr. Vincas Jurgutis from the Ministry of Economy and Innovation of Republic of Lithuania. That was the video. Mrs. Maria Lemodeva, Vice Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Bulgaria. Mr. Laszlo Kunit, member of the Board of Directors of Hungarian Tourism Agency, and Mr. Andrzej Gut-Mostowy, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Sport and Tourism in Poland. Thank you very much, and that's it. Let's see each other at the gala.
Thank you very much.